Well, hey there, I am Arthur Morris, and one thing is for sure. After 40 years, I can teach you how to become a better bird photographer. We are going to optimize this image, do the raw conversion in Adobe Camera Raw, and take you through to the finished product. Before we get started, I want to invite you to join me at Fort DeSoto over in Tierra Verde, Florida, south of St. Petersburg. I have 3 trips coming up in late September and October. I'll be in San Diego for 5 weeks. I have 3 instructional photo tours and lots of days for private mornings if you live out that way. Lots of room still on Homer in February and March of 2023. Amazing trip, amazing flight photography. I'll be announcing dates for a Jacksonville instructional photo tour next July in a little bit. And I have a sold-out trip to Galapagos this August, and I plan on returning in July, so keep your eyes open for that. Everything you're about to see and learn in this video is covered in Digital Basics 2, and there'll be a link to that in the description. And before we get started, remember to use Bedford for your major gear purchases. Get 3% back on your credit card and enjoy free second-day air FedEx. So here's the raw file. If you look up at the top, you see it's .arw. It's a Sony raw file. And the first thing I always like to do is check the exposure in Raw Digger. And looking at the adapted histogram here, we see it's almost perfect. I could have added another third stop of light. And the reason the color looks so funky is because we're looking at the adapted histogram. So that will work for every camera, every raw file for all modern digital and mirrorless cameras. Now we go back to Photo Mechanic. Again, I can right-click either place, edit photo with Adobe Photoshop. And there is your Adobe Camera Raw screen, and it's the same thing in Lightroom and similar in Capture One. So everybody can learn a lot here. So we know we wanted to increase the exposure by a little bit based on what I saw in Raw Digger. And the next thing I do is take a look at the white balance. So we see we're at 4750 color temperature. Click on the brightest white here, and that warms it up quite a bit. I don't like that at all. So we'll go down. Let's see if we get to 4750 is where we started. Actually, here I like the auto white balance quite a bit. And we'll go with 4800, close enough. First thing I do is adjust the white slider by holding down the Option key and moving this to the right until I show overexposed in the water on the lower right. Then I get rid of that. It disappears at +12, and I go to a third of that, about +4 to set my white point. +5 is fine. Blacks, I do the opposite. I hold down the Option key, move the slider to the left until the underexposed blacks come up. Then I gently go to the right. So -42. So we know this was exposed well to the right. Play with the shadow slider just to bring back that high key look a little, and maybe come down on the highlights a smidge. Looks good. By rote, I'll set clarity at 10. That's a form of in-camera sharpening. Dehaze at 2, and vibrance at 10. Now, folks that are picky may want to tone down the yellows and greens here. To do that, we go to Color Mixer. We go to Saturation, we go to the yellows. If we boost it up, we see it makes it even more funky, so we can reduce it a bit. We'll go to -10. Try the same thing with the greens. Doesn't affect much, so we reduce it a little bit. And then most importantly, we go to luminance on the yellows, and we can pull it down a little. So we've taken the bite out of the yellows. I like that a lot better. And we are good to go back to basics, see if we missed anything. No, we're good to go. So we hit open to convert this. First thing I do is make a background copy. and run Topaz DeNoise, filter, Topaz Labs, Topaz DeNoise. And I run it on low light. I don't mess around and look at all the settings and compare and the whole bit. I found low light works best for pictures in low light or even pictures in sun with the latest version. Here we are, and I'm going to label this DeNoise layer. Now I'm going to make another layer. I should have done that first. Drag this to the plus sign, and we're going to name this one Cleanup. Okay, so I'm going to go Control minus, and I'm going to use R for the ruler tool, and I'm going to draw a line here, and we see this is going to need a little bit of counterclockwise rotation. So I don't know why Photoshop keeps stealing my keyboard shortcut. I make a keyboard shortcut for this, image rotation, and it disappears. So we go image rotation, arbitrary, and it tells us we need about 1/2 degree counterclockwise rotation. Hit OK. Then I'm going to go C for the crop tool. Original ratio is what I want. And I'm going to hit Tab to get rid of that. And I don't want to deal with filling in any of this stuff. So I'll come here. And here I like all the negative space. Hit Enter. We're good there. And now we want to work on this beach a little bit. I hate these two big plants in the middle. So I go P for the patch tool. That's my keyboard shortcut. All the keyboard shortcuts are in Digital Basics. I go there. Drag it to the same latitude. You can even smooth this part off here. Don't like that gray left over sticking into the sky. That looks pretty good. Want to be fancy? We could go Tab to bring these back. Make a new layer, Command, whoops, drag it to here. And let's label this one Gaussian Blur, G-A-U-S-S-I-A-N, Blur. Hit Enter. Now I'm going to go Filter, Blur, Gaussian Blur, 64.8 pixels, doesn't really matter, anything large. And now I'm going to add a Hide All mask by option clicking on the Add Layer mask. And now we have a black mask. We got to paint with white, so we go BD. And I make my brush real big. And I'm going to do this in 33% increments. So I'm just going to hit, if you look up here, opacity 50%, I hit 3.3, and that will make our brush 33% opacity. I go over as many times as I want, it'll still be 33, and we can see the blurring a little bit, so we can go more. And I'll even go for 100%, and we'll see the difference here. Yeah, we could even go a little more. I'll just hit 0 and go 100%. That should make the mask white over there, which it did. And now we can see the nice job of the blurring. And now I'm going to go here and merge the layer, Command E. And let's take a close look at the eye. Beautifully sharp. You might want to do a little bit of cleanup. You could do J for the spot healing brush and get rid of a little bit of salt. Sweet. If you want to sharpen that bill and face up again, W for the quick selection tool. Select the bill, the lores, and the eye. Make sure to get outside. That's good. Then you hold the alternate key down to make it a minus brush. Get rid of that. That is good. Then I go Select, Modify, feather the selection 1 pixel to smooth the edges. Put it on its own layer, Command J, and now I'm going to go Command S, which is my keyboard shortcut for unsharp mask, and I'm going to put in the crazy numbers of 15, 65, 0, and this is a contrast mask, and that's also covered in Digital Basics. When we click the layer on and off, We see it makes it a little blacker, and definitely when you go to the whole picture, it sharpens it up nicely. Command E to merge the layers. One last trick that I often do, we can merge the cleanup layer, Command E. Now make a new layer, Command J. And I'll often try image, I forget what it's called, color tone. Let's just name it color tone. And now I'll go image auto tone. That's what I should have named it. And obviously that's the most ridiculous, ugly thing we've ever seen. We might see if 5% would make it a little bit nicer, 4%. Yeah, I actually like the tiny bit of improvement there. Now I'm going to flatten and convert the whole thing to 8-bit. Command minus, Shift, Command S. Snowy Egret in soft light. Snowy Egret in lagoon in soft light, and then has Photo Mechanic puts in the location, Fort DeSoto Park. I hit save, I hit OK, and now I'm going to make a JPEG for the blog that you'll see on the blog tomorrow. And I go image size, 3200, hit OK, Command 0, Command S, my shortcut, so go back to 100. Amount 100, 0.3, and those are my standard JPEGs. For all size JPEGs, hit OK. We have a video on this also called something like creating the world's best JPEGs. I'll try to remember to put a link in for that. If not, you can find it on the online store through the blog. Shift, Option, Command S. And now I will go optimize the file size. 395 is what we want for the blog. Hit save. And then when I rename it 3200. And it's going to save it in my AA temp folder. Then I go Command W, don't save. Then I reopen the same picture and hit the action for slideshow JPEGs. There you go. Now we're going to go back to Photo Mechanic. And we can see here's our original. And here is the processed image. I think the color is much more natural here. Maybe this is a tiny bit too magenta and a tiny bit too warm. Till next time. Anyway, smartest thing you can do is subscribe to the blog, www.birdsasart-blog.com. And even smarter than that, join me on an IPT. Hope you're having fun, staying safe, get out and make some great pictures. Love you much. Cheers.